In his final hours as president, Joe Biden chose mercy, sparing 37 men from death. But when Donald Trump took office, that mercy turned into torment. The killers weren't freed. They were buried alive inside America's harshest prison. Now, a political storm brews over justice, vengeance, and the question haunting Washington. Where does clemency end and cruelty begin? Among the final acts of former US President Joe Biden before leaving the Oval Office was one of moral conviction and political peril, commuting the death sentences of 37 convicted murderers. As the Wall Street Journal reported, the decision was intended as a legacy move, reflecting Biden's belief that the death penalty was needlessly cruel and impossible to administer fairly. But hours after President Donald Trump was sworn in, Biden's gesture of mercy took a dark turn. According to the report, the new administration ordered that the 37 men be confined under the harshest possible conditions, not transferred to mainline federal prisons as initially planned, but instead to the US Penitentiary at Florence, Colorado, known as ADX, often called the Alcatraz of the Rockies. The order reportedly came from Emil Bove III, then acting Deputy Attorney General, who decided that all but a handful of the commuted inmates, those requiring specialized medical care, would be sent to ADX. Inmates at the Colorado Supermax typically spend 23 hours a day alone in their cells, with minimal human contact. The facility is designed for the nation's most violent offenders, including terrorists and serial killers. In May 2025, at a meeting with Attorney General Pam Bondi for victims' families, officials said they were satisfied with the convicts' prison conditions. Aaron Wrights, then an Assistant Attorney General, told the families,
"I was disappointed that the cells have windows to see daylight. The prison food was too good for these men. I've got no problem with gruel. If made right, it's a nutritious all-in-one meal. If you're not going to be killed lawfully at the hands of the state, well, your prison sentence is going to be hard as hell."
While the president's clemency power is virtually absolute, the authority to direct retribution through prison placement is far less clear. Critics say it blurs the line between justice and vengeance. For Bondi, the decision was both moral and procedural. In a September 2025 statement, she said,
President Biden's decision to commute the death sentences of these monsters showed abhorrent disregard for our justice system and total disrespect for victims' families already suffering through immense loss. Sending them to the Colorado prison will ensure that they spend the remainder of their lives in conditions consistent with the egregious crimes they committed.
But civil rights groups fiercely objected. David Farthy, director of the National Prison Project at the ACLU, representing 21 of the inmates, countered.
After being evaluated under Bureau regulations, none of our plaintiffs were designated for ADX. Under Attorney General Bondi, all of our plaintiffs have been slated for ADX, not because of a security risk, but to inflict maximum suffering. People should be very concerned about the President and Attorney General's disregard for the law in this case. Today, it may be people who are very unpopular. Tomorrow, it could be anybody.
Biden, who once supported the death penalty, came to see it as a stain on the soul of the nation. His commutation order in December 2024 followed intense pressure from anti-death penalty activists to spare all 40 federal inmates then on death row. Biden declined to spare 3, convicted of terrorism and hate crimes, but commuted the rest. In his parting statement, Biden reportedly said,
"In good conscience, I cannot stand back and let a new administration resume executions that I halted."
Trump's response was characteristically direct and furious. On Christmas Day 2024, he posted a social media message.
I refuse to wish a Merry Christmas to those lucky souls, but instead will say, go to hell.
Abigail Jackson, White House spokesperson, later reinforced Trump's position.
Joe Biden should have never downgraded the sentences of these heinous criminals.
Trump has long been an advocate of the death penalty. His stance dates back to 1989, when he famously took out full-page newspaper ads calling for its reinstatement after the Central Park jogger assault, a case in which 5 teenagers were later exonerated. During his first term, Trump's Justice Department carried out 13 federal executions, ending just 4 days before Biden's inauguration in 2021. On Inauguration Day 2025, Trump reversed Biden's federal moratorium on executions. In August, after briefly taking control of Washington's local police department, he urged prosecutors to pursue death sentences for murder suspects, even though DC abolished capital punishment in 1981. He later called for rapid trial and execution of the alleged killer of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, underscoring his renewed push for harsh penalties. After Biden's commutations, the Bureau of Prisons initially assessed most of the 37 men as eligible for high-security mainline facilities, prisons offering limited education, recreation, and occasional transfers for good behaviour. But that changed after January 20, 2025. Daniel Troyer, convicted in a 2006 drug-related quadruple murder in Florida, was one of those reassigned to ADX. He protested during an April hearing.
It's a political stunt by President Trump to look tough. It's not based on facts.
The Justice Department is now exploring whether state prosecutors can retry some of these men under state capital laws, potentially reinstating their death sentences. Thomas Bacadal, state attorney for St. Lucie County, Florida, confirmed that federal officials offered assistance in re-prosecuting Troyer and co-defendant Ricardo Sanchez Jr., known locally as the Turnpike Killers.
It goes without saying it's a death penalty case. It meets all the statutory and legal criteria for the state of Florida.
Bacadal said, though he noted that they are hard to get an answer out of at the federal level. Weeks later, Bacadal said he received a call from Pam Bondi.
We had a wonderful conversation. She is committed to helping.
Families of the victims remain split. Justin Heflin, whose father, bank guard Richard Heflin, was murdered in a 1997 robbery, said,
It's a harsher prison, so they would suffer more.
Marissa Gibson, widow of Officer Brian Hurst, killed in a 2005 Ohio bank robbery, said she was furious at Biden's commutations, but also wary of Trump's overreach.
A jury decided that the death penalty would be proper, but Trump's hatred of particular inmates shouldn't give officials license to interfere with prison assignment procedures. Space in maximum security prisons should be reserved for people who are current threats, not necessarily people that committed crimes many years ago and have been exemplary inmates since then.
Meanwhile, an ACLU lawsuit now challenges the ADX transfers, alleging that the new administration's decision violates due process and the ban on cruel and unusual punishment. The suit notes that previous commutations, 18 under past presidents, were followed by standard reassignment to suitable facilities. Still, Aaron Wrights insists the 37 deserve special treatment.
We wanted to focus on that very recent, very tangible, and particularly gross injustice, which doesn't close the door on revisiting other commutations in prior eras and in prior administrations.
The Justice Department maintains that Attorney General Bondi has full discretion to assign inmates.